2 hours. 2 hours and 10 minutes on Monday night. Sorry, we ran over. I think we can do better today. All right. Sean's giving me the heads up. Here we go. Welcome back. For those of you that haven't worked in a month or so, or some of you worked last Saturday, welcome back. Normally we have quieter summers, and so it's been a while since we've seen you. This summer was not quiet. And our first Artist Series show is just 2 weeks from today. So a lot of us in the office are saying, what summer? So I think lots of familiar faces that you, on the staff, you know, obviously Kelly is still here, Michaela, Molly, Jared. Jared can't get enough of us. He's actually graduated, but I have hired him through a temp agency to help us out occasionally there, but he's also asked to become an usher and floor captain. And I said, yeah, of course. So you'll see him wearing black and white and fancy socks and ushering alongside of you, or he might be your floor captain sometime too. So I made him promise to be nice, and I told him that if I had him driving artists around, I would actually pay him to do that. So that's good too. Jared will be back, or sorry, that's Jared. Joey will also be back after he's done with the summer gig. He'll be with us one more semester. We did hire a new student manager. She will start here in a few weeks. Her name is Sarah. She's actually, if you remember Emily Dalug from a couple years ago, who went off to dental school, it's her younger sister. So yeah, she emailed me and she's like, hey, so my sister worked for you and I'm coming to UNI and I'm a freshman. And I said, you're hired. Actually, first I said, come in, talk to me, let's make sure this is what you want to do. But she was excited about it, and I think she's going to work out well. So if she does like it, we will hopefully keep her for as long as she is at UNI. Okay, a few other announcements. Schedules were sent out last week, so hopefully you have seen those by now. We emailed them to everyone, and we also mailed it out in the regular mail. And somebody did point out to me on Monday night that on the one you received in your postal mail, it said spring 2019. Sorry about that. I thought I changed all of those when I copied it over, but I must have missed it. So thank you. If you have any changes to those schedules, same as always, just drop us an email, give us a call, we'll make those adjustments. As I said, our first show is August 14th, Gladys Night, and that is 2 weeks from today. Couple more announcements. I will be gone for a few weeks at the end of August because we have another baby coming. Yes. Number 4, for those of you keeping score. It's a little bit terrifying, and yet I think one will be easier than 2. So looking forward to that. But I will for sure be gone a couple weeks, maybe more. It just kind of depends on how things go. I actually much preferred that I knew exactly when the twins were going to be born. This going back to, it'll be somewhere in is not as much fun. I like to plan. And then the last announcement from the front office is that Jenny Tunnicliffe, our development manager, is retiring tomorrow. Tomorrow's her last day. So we will have something different going on in that job in the future. I don't know yet. Steve's on his way to Portugal on Monday, so I don't think we'll be doing much of anything until he's back. So if you see him today or tomorrow, you can tell him to have a good trip. Okay, this is our annual reminder. If you need or want a polo shirt or you need a new name tag, to just let us know. We only order those and make those as we need them. So if you lost your name tag, we're happy to make you another one. Or if you change names, doesn't happen a ton, but we could change your name on it too. Let us know. Contact info update. Oh, I have a sample this time. Hopefully you got this when you checked in. Look that over. Make sure you don't have to make any changes. Phone numbers. If you have changes, make them right on here. Hand it back in. If you don't have any changes, just give it back to us without any corrections so that we know that you have seen it. And as you can see, we do not store your birth date by year, just your month and day, and that's why it added 2019, because in my software, I only do month and day. So, and that's just so, as many of you know, we can send you a birthday card. All right. The good news is we are 3/4 of the way through my outline. The bad news is everything else lasts a lot longer. So, all right. So up next, Jared. Wake up, Jared. All right. Those of you that have been around a while know that we have evacuation chairs, and it's been a couple of years since we have talked about them at this training. So we are going to watch that little training video again just to kind of refresh your memory, but also there's a good chunk, about 30 new people that started in the last year who have not seen this at all, so I want to make sure they're aware of it. I do have one of the chairs sitting in the aisle right over there, which I'll kind of roll around here to show you at the end. But these are located, there's one in every level, and they're used to evacuate someone who cannot use the stairs in an emergency when the elevator is likely out of service. So they're on this side of the building where the staircase goes all the way from the basement to the 3rd floor. They're on each level by that doorway. So on the mezzanine and on the gallery, just across from door number 6. And then here on the main floor, it's in the back by the wheelchair lift at the back of the dress circle. So that if they were back there, they could be taken down the 5 or 6 stairs out here. Because also in an emergency or any sort of power failure, that lift is incredibly slow on a good day, and without power, it doesn't work at all. So that's the main reason behind those locations. So, Jared, fire off that video.
Today, more than ever before, efforts are being made to make public buildings accessible to disabled people. Public buildings such as schools, government facilities, places of worship, corporate offices, and retail businesses are now being designed to provide access or are being upgraded to accommodate disabled people. Ironically, while there is much focus on providing access into public buildings, the issue of emergency evacuation of disabled people during a fire or other emergency, when lifts and elevators are not operable, has received little attention. Fortunately, a solution is available. The Garaventa EvacuTrack CD7 is designed to quickly and safely transport physically disabled or injured people downstairs and out of a building to safety during a fire or other building emergency. Installed in hundreds of facilities around the globe, the Garaventa EvacuTrack is the best engineered and easiest to use evacuation chair on the market today. The EvacuTrack CD7, which is easily identified by its distinctive lime green color, is the newest generation of EvacuTrack. It reflects over 15 years of design input from disabled people, operators, and evacuation safety experts. This video is provided as an introduction to the design and operation of the Garaventa EvacuTrack CD7 and as a key part of the operator training program. Let's begin with an overview of how EvacuTrack works by going through an actual emergency evacuation drill. EvacuTrack is normally kept in a storage cabinet near the upper stair landing, ready for use. It's quick and easy to set up. EvacuTrack is very stable on a flat surface. The tracks on the front end of the machine rest on the ground, serving as a parking brake. The stability of EvacuTrack allows for easy loading, which means a single attendant can perform the evacuation. You'll notice there are no sides or arms on the EvacuTrack. This allows a passenger to board from either side with equal ease. Velcro straps are provided for securing the passenger. One strap holds the legs in position, and the other 2 straps wrap around the torso. The lower torso strap can be used on its own if transporting a small passenger, such as a child. The low center of gravity provides maximum stability on the stairs. On flat surfaces, EvacuTrack can be pushed on its wheels as easily as a stroller. On stairs, steel-belted rubber tracks securely grip the stair noses and control the descent regardless of the stair covering. While the passenger's weight propels the EvacuTrack down the stairs, a hydraulic governor limits the maximum speed of descent, allowing even a small attendant to safely evacuate heavier passengers. An additional fail-safe brake must be released before the EvacuTrack can descend the stairs. This brake allows the operator to further control the descent speed or stop the EvacuTrack on the stairway if required. When clear of the emergency area, EvacuTrack's front wheels are retracted, lowering EvacuTrack onto its rubber tracks so it can't roll. Whenever the operator releases the handle, this parking brake system is automatically engaged. The passenger can wait safely and comfortably until the emergency is over. The next section of the video will take you through the correct operation of the EvacuTrack CD7 step by step. In addition to this videotape, you will need an EvacuTrack CD7, an assistant, and of course your owner's manual. Please follow the instructions in this video program. If you are unclear about any part of the program, rewind the tape at that point and review the segment again. Although the EvacuTrack will be used infrequently, operators must be properly trained to ensure the safety and comfort of passengers. We recommend that at least 2 people be trained as operators, so a backup will be available if required. During these training sessions, the 2 operators should exchange roles as operator and passenger. This will give each a chance to learn how a disabled passenger might feel during an evacuation. Once both operators are proficient, they should practice again with the disabled passenger who will be transported with the EvacuTrack during an emergency. Now is a good time to pause the videotape and ensure that you have the necessary items for hands-on training. You will need an EvacuTrack CD7, a backup operator who will be your assistant, and an owner's manual. If these are already in hand, let the tape play through and we'll resume in a few seconds. You should now have an EvacuTrack CD7 close at hand for operational practice, as well as an assistant and a copy of the EvacuTrack Owner's Manual. Your Owner's Manual contains important safety precautions, the terminology employed by Garaventa in a labeled diagram of EvacuTrack, complete operating instructions, storage recommendations, service information, and warranty details. Please take the time to read the Owner's Manual before operating EvacuTrack. Before we begin with the actual operation of the EvacuTrack, you need to be aware of a few very important safety issues. Do not use EvacuTrack on curved or spiral stairways or on stairs that are loose or have irregular spacing. Use extra caution on wet or slippery stairs. Do not use the EvacuTrack with a passenger weighing more than 137 kilograms, or 300 pounds. Do not load a passenger into EvacuTrack unless the seat frame is fully opened and the seat latch is locked. Check the indicator window. If it is blue, the latch is locked. Before we demonstrate the operating procedure in detail, let's make sure you are totally familiar with EvacuTrack's main components. Section 2 contains a diagram of EvacuTrack CD7 and the terminology we will use in this operator training program. Pause the tape now and take a moment to read the Owner's Manual. Please note the Safety Information page and locate and identify each labeled component on your EvacuTrack. Resume play when you're ready to continue. Now it's time for some hands-on training. As you've seen, EvacuTrack folds up for efficient storage. After removing EvacuTrack from the cabinet, grasp and pull the handle out and up. You'll hear a distinct click as the locking mechanism engages. Check the indicator window to confirm that the seat latch is locked. The indicator window should be completely blue. Now transfer the passenger. EvacuTrack is designed to accommodate a variety of situations, and passengers may have a wide range of disabilities. People in wheelchairs may or may not have the use of their arms. Others may have physical needs requiring special attention. Operators and their passenger should work together to develop the best procedure for getting into and out of EvacuTrack. In some cases, such as transfer of quadriplegic passengers, an extra attendant may be required. You may find it beneficial to consult an occupational therapist to determine the best method of transfer. Wrap the safety strap securely around the passenger's body. In an actual emergency, you would wrap the passenger's arms inside the safety straps if the passenger was injured or had no control of their arms. In the case of a small passenger, such as a child, use only the lower torso strap. To roll EvacuTrack on a flat surface, press down on the handle to take weight off the front of the unit and squeeze the brake release bar with both hands. Squeezing the bar lowers the front wheels into their operating position, making EvacuTrack easier to push. Do not attempt to lower the front wheels without first pushing down on the handle. This may stretch the brake cable. To turn EvacuTrack on flat surfaces, push down on the handle and pivot EvacuTrack on the rear wheels. Push EvacuTrack towards the stairs. Approach the top step at a right angle. We recommend you position EvacuTrack on the inside of the stairway to allow room for other traffic on the stairway and to make it easier to turn corners at stairway landings. Push EvacuTrack forward until the front wheels roll off the top step. At this point, EvacuTrack will stop automatically when the tracks make contact with the stair nose. Release your grip on the brake release bar. This will engage the parking brake and ensure EvacuTrack does not begin to descend the stairway until you are ready. Lift the handle to tilt EvacuTrack forward until it's at the same angle as the stairway. The EvacuTrack parking brake is still engaged. To descend the stairs, release the brake by slowly squeezing the brake release bar. A governor limits the maximum descent speed to about 3 feet per second. Reducing pressure on the brake release lever so it is partially engaged will further slow the descent speed. When approaching the stairway landing, press the handle down to move EvacuTrack onto the flat surface. Pivot on the rear wheels to turn the corner and align EvacuTrack with the next flight of stairs. Lift the handle and squeeze the brake release bar as before. To stop EvacuTrack on the stairway, slowly release the brake release bar. This may be necessary to allow other stairway traffic to pass or to clear an obstruction. When you reach the bottom of the stairway, press the handle down to move the EvacuTrack onto the flat surface. Then push EvacuTrack away from the stairway and clear of any possible danger. During an actual emergency, the passenger can remain in the comfort and safety of EvacuTrack until a wheelchair or other transportation can be arranged. Repeat this practice drill until both operator and passenger feel totally familiar with the procedure. Then trade places to allow the assistant to become a proficient operator as well. Once you're both proficient at operating EvacuTrack, practice again with the disabled passenger who will be using the EvacuTrack during an actual emergency. When the practice session is completed, unlock the seat latch by pushing down on the red bar under the seat. Fold EvacuTrack closed and replace it at the top of the stairway, ready for emergency use.
I had to move it over here because this is where my camera is. Monday, I just did it in the hallway over there. So this is what the chair looks like, so you can get a visual of its actual size. As they said, it comes folded up in the box. So when you open it up, you first have to fold it out. So it'll look like that inside the cabinet when you open the door. So if you just grab the top handle, and it makes the distinctive clinking sound, as they mentioned in the video. And now, generally, you're not going to have a disabled person that is unaccompanied. Usually they have some family or a teacher or something with them. So obviously, that person is likely to assist you in transferring them because they would be familiar with transferring them in other situations. So I think it's unlikely that any of you would end up moving a person all on your own. There's also, other ushers that could assist you. but we want to make sure that you all know how to use the tools, because in an emergency, everybody has something to contribute, and hopefully you'd be comfortable helping somebody that is unable to get down the stairs do so with this. Now, obviously, we have 1,600 people. Some of our events, like the North Star show we did in June, has a large number of folks in wheelchairs. We only have 3 of these. Once you get them outside, you can't really get them out of it immediately until either somebody has to carry their chair out, or anyway. So the other ideas, number one, it's not a bad idea to try the elevator. It might work depending on the scenario. The last resort is to put them in these fire staircases. There's one over on this side, and there's 2 over on this side. Not the open staircase that has the fancy carpets. These are the escape stairs that are very plain and surrounded by bricks. They're rated for a fire rating, which means they're a safer place for longer in a fire. They're also one of the standard places that the fire department would search. Now, if you did leave anybody in those locations, please make sure you communicate to building staff that there is somebody there waiting for rescue, so that we can direct the emergency responders there right away to help get them out. Or when a chair becomes available, we can send somebody to go get them with one of them. So, but it is worth trying the elevator, because it all depends on the circumstances. In some circumstances, the elevator will still work. If that doesn't work, or it's too busy, this is our next option. If this is unavailable, or it's been used already and there's more people, then have them wait in that staircase. Sound good? We did have one instance where the person, I think she used a walker, and so she did just start her way down the stairs, like one stair at a time. I cringe thinking about the possibilities, but again, in an emergency, you have to just case by case. If that's what they're comfortable doing, I would caution you not to suggest that somebody does that, but if they want to on their own, again, that's just kind of go case by case. Possibly. The elevator is on the emergency backup system, so it should restore, and at that point, it would return to the main floor. But yes, that's why it's not the best option, but again, kind of one of the options in our toolbox for responding. Yeah. Oh, okay. So, good to know. And then even if the power doesn't restore, the elevator is designed to return to in our case, it'd be the ground floor, and that's the way, the floor out, so. Good. Any other questions on that specific piece? Excellent. That's the easy one. Okay. Next up. Thank you to those of you who submitted some ideas when I emailed out about questions you had, or training items, or things you've seen people do correctly or incorrectly. Somebody gave me a great idea. They said, wouldn't it be great to have a list of Usher do's and don'ts? And I said, oh, that's a fantastic idea. So I used that as the method for laying out the discussion on things to review. So Molly and Michaela are handing out my Usher do's and don'ts, and we'll spend just a few minutes going over those so I can expand upon them a little bit. But this is yours to keep, take home, laminate, refer to it on a regular basis, of course. I'm sure none of them ended up in the recycling bin in the lobby on the way out. That would never happen. This is a good time to say thank you for coming. We do appreciate, I did a better intro the other night, I realized during the video. The main purpose of doing this every year is really about serving our patrons and having a safe environment for them. So obviously the 2 main goals, we want to take care of folks when they're coming to the shows here, get them to the right seats, answer their questions, help them have a good experience. The second priority is we want to help them be safe in any kind of emergency situation that may arise. And so the reason behind this annual training is that we brush up on both the service things and also the security things. Now, there are fire codes related to the security things, so that becomes the lion's share of the content because we have to cover that every year. in order to run a safe building. But I try to every year also kind of cover some of the details of things that you guys need to know to help serve our patrons. So let's get the bad news over with first. Let's start with the don'ts. Please don't sit in front of guests. Appropriate spaces for ushers to sit during a show are the last rows, folding chairs in the back or sides, folding chairs in the back of the gallery if we've got a sold-out show. This has always been the case, but it was pointed out to me that there's been some questions on this of late. And also the next one below it is a follow-up. Don't ask guests to move ahead so you can sit behind them. If there are guests in the last row, then you can't sit in the last row. I was told of one specific instance where that happened. So if there are guests in the last row here, there's that ledge behind, or you might be able to grab a folding chair. There are several different options. It is important that every door have coverage, which we'll talk a little bit. That's listed on here a couple other ways. But that's why we do have to make sure people stay at all the doors. People will get up during the show. We'll need to get in and out. Little distractions and things like that can happen anytime throughout the hall, and an emergency could happen at any time, and we need to be prepared to respond quickly. Please don't touch or clean up bodily fluids without appropriate protections, gloves, etc. Contact custodial when available, help people avoid the area. Somebody asked, what should we do about that? And I said, well, thankfully we have lots of people who are comfortable cleaning up those things because they either had children or grandchildren or are just comfortable with that. And we appreciate it, but we want you to be careful. We do have gloves available in the conference room, or in the coat room, excuse me, and then also on the usher boxes, carts, the floor captain carts in the upper levels. But really, the lion's share of the cleanup should be left to our custodial staff. If you guys just help us, and the same thing we would do is just try to help mitigate it a little bit. If someone has gotten sick, we've got stuff we can sprinkle on it. But by and large, we're just going to try to help people avoid the area. If somebody's got a bloody nose, that's another common one. Like maybe you can, hold the bag for them, but certainly you shouldn't be grabbing their bloody Kleenexes or anything. And just help us as best you can. So I don't think, someone did ask about clarifying this policy. I think people generally understand. But yeah, it's just a safety thing. There's a lot of things that can be transmitted through bodily fluids, and we don't want to have anybody come into risk with that. So just, please don't show up to a show you're not assigned to. Rumor has it that a couple people have said, well, if you didn't get assigned, just show up. They won't know. Well, we might know. I will admit keeping track of everything, obviously things get missed from time to time, but it is not true that you should just show up. We had several big shows this fall. Many of them had random drawings for, and so some people I know were disappointed. I really did my darndest to try to even that out. People who didn't get a drawing on one, I tried to make sure they got one of the others that they signed up for. So we really put a lot of effort in to try to balance that out. And so just showing up for something really works against that. So I do ask that you not do that. That's not how it works, with one exception. The floor captains are allowed to do that as an extra perk for being a floor captain. It's their one and only extra perk. And I will tell you, they rarely do it. But it is an option available to them. And if it is something they really want to participate in, they may call us up and do that. But like I said, that's the only exception we have to that. Also, you never have to find a replacement. If you can't make it, you just let us know. We do often have extra people built into the schedule, or we know when I did the schedule back in June, we're going to assume everything sells out, right? Not exactly, but we don't know exactly how many tickets are going to be sold once the actual event gets here. So we're making a guess. And that's why often we'll see emails where we're either reducing or adding extra people to a show, because as we get closer, then we have to square that up. Please don't be reading or doing other tasks while we're supposed to be helping guests. All doors must be appropriately staffed. Check with your floor captain before doing other activities. So the example given here was some folks like to bring a book or an iPad or something because the show just isn't that interesting to them, but they want to help us out. We appreciate that, but we do also need to make sure that our job is covered. So it is kind of a whole show commitment, We have to make sure the doors are covered. We have to have people assisting folks in and out. So if that's something that you want to do, discuss it with your floor captain and make sure we have everything covered. Because if not, we may need you to suffer through the show just to help us out. Okay? Please don't leave folding chairs in the Great Hall. Return it to where you found it. As we talked about for places for people to sit, especially here on the side doors, a lot of times there's folding chairs. And anytime we're a big sold out show and there's a bunch of folks that go up to the back of the gallery, please take that chair back out and hang it on the rack when you're done. I know the gallery floor captain especially will very much appreciate that because there's a whole lot of stairs to carry those chairs down. So please don't just leave them in there. Also, the ones here at 2 and 5 on this floor are an obstruction hazard. We provide them because we don't want you to have to stand the whole time, but we do need, that's why we can't just leave them there because they'll be in the way of a fire exit or something. Please don't be afraid to ask questions. Floor captains, other ushers, house management staff, we're all here to help the patrons. Don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry I don't know, but let me find out. There's a lot of details in doing this job. We all know that. Some of you work a couple times a month. Some of you work a couple times, don't work again until December. It all varies on when we have the shows, when we have the big shows, the nights that you can work, all the other things that you volunteer for. So we know there's a wide variety. So it's okay. You might not have all the answers, but don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask questions at the meetings. If we covered something and you weren't sure, ask us, ask someone else around you. If it's your first time working the boxes and you're concerned about that, confused about that, don't be afraid to ask. Everything's labeled on the ends of the rows. The boxes are mostly labeled. We're working on updating that. So just take a minute to familiarize yourself with the area you were assigned. But if you do have questions, don't be afraid to ask. Again, if we get people in their locations the first time, it's very helpful to everyone else, including them. Please don't ignore your ticket scanner. If it says stop, look for the reason and act appropriately. Remember, there's a bunch of reasons why the scanner can say stop. The only one that you can let them in on is already scanned, because that just means either you already scanned it or someone else scanned it at another door. So already scanned is the only stop reason why they can go ahead and go in. Any other stop reason has to be checked with the box office. The box office has to verify what's going on there, because what that is telling you is the ticket you're holding and scanning at that moment is no longer valid. So it could be as simple as the tickets got reprinted as a part of a season-long order, and new tickets are sitting in the box office for them. We just got to grab those and scan them. This happens a lot. Again, people ordered their tickets back in May, some of them, and our first show's August 14th. A lot can happen between May and August. A lot more can happen between next April when we have our last show. And they get all of those tickets at once. So a number of reasons. It doesn't mean they're a thief or a liar or anything like that. It's just we got to check with the box office and get it corrected. Make sure every barcode is scanned. This was something I was talking with somebody about and they didn't realize. We're getting more and more of the ones on phones. The ones on phones, there is still one barcode for every person. So they scroll through that on their phone and give you more barcodes to scan. So in all cases, whether it be a printed out ticket on a full sheet of paper, the little purple tickets like we've always had, or the phone, it's one barcode per person. Okay? Yes? On the phone, I would default to asking them to see what they can do. If they hand it to you, that's fine. But I certainly wouldn't grab it out of their hand and just see. One of the things is some people will take the email version on their phone and try to give you that to scan, and that does not work very well. There is a specific square barcode for the phone ticket, and that should scan pretty well. But if they're trying to, some people will take the PDF, which comes as an email, and they might open that on their phone. And that's the one that's a full-page piece of paper, which when opened up on the phone is going to be a tiny little barcode that's going to be hard for our system to read. And that's probably what you're talking about, where you have to try to make that one bigger. So I would just ask them to try to make it bigger. Otherwise, as a last resort, we can actually type in those numbers manually, but that's time-consuming. So do your best to try to get that to scan. But if you can't get it to scan on their phone and it's one of those, the box office could look it up and just issue them a paper ticket on the spot to replace it. In the end, we just got to make sure everybody gets counted. So the best we can do to accomplish that. Yep. Oh, actually used a scanner, you mean? Okay. I'd say if ever you're assigned as a scanner, then the floor captain or the house manager can give you a quick once-over. The problem with them is we only have, 8 or 10 of them, and so getting it incorporated into a training like this is really hard. But yeah, if you haven't used one before, have one of our staff give you a quick once-over. They're pretty straightforward, but yeah, if you've never used one before, and they're unfortunately kind of clunky to hold on to. I'm told that the new versions are more the size of a phone, like a smartphone. But of course, they're several $100s a piece, so we don't have them yet. Yep. Oh, yes. We have improved. Last April, we added 3 more access points in the lobby and way up on the high ceiling. So that should have increased coverage to the foot of the staircase, and also made them work on the mezzanine, which has never happened before. And then we're also going to be upgrading. Right now, there's very little Wi-Fi in the Great Hall here. And we're going to be making an investment in upgrading the Wi-Fi in here, which should also mean the scanners will work better in the hallways right out here, because we're basically just expanding the network throughout the building. So we have made some improvements there, and we're working on more to help with that. So hopefully we'll lose the dead spots, and it'll work out a little bit better. And we may even get to the point where we're able to scan on the mezzanine. I keep pushing for the gallery, and I haven't won that battle yet for getting Wi-Fi up there. But we're getting wiring a heck of a lot closer, so it'll happen someday. It will happen, Steve says. Hi, Steve. Oh, good. Okay. Please don't bring extra items in with you. As you know, our space in the coat room is very limited. Please be as minimal as you can. So, of course, we understand there are things that you don't want to leave in your car, but if you can, it's probably going to be a better spot. As you know, when wintertime comes and everybody's coats are hanging up in there, it's also our only storage room for anything on this level, so it becomes very full in a hurry. So just keep that in mind. Please don't ignore disruptions in an area that is hard to get to, for example, the middle of the row, but weigh your actions against the distraction. If somebody's being obnoxious or doing something they're not supposed to do, like if we've been told to be very strict on cameras and they're taking pictures, do the best you can to get their attention and ask them to stop, but bear in mind we don't want to be more disruptive than the behavior they're exhibiting. Please don't leave your assigned level or location during the show. Again, we never know when a safety thing might happen. We never know when the fire alarm is going to go off. So we need to make sure we have coverage at all times. Now, obviously, if you need to use the restroom, we're not saying don't do that, but make sure there's somebody else in your area, or mention that you just have to step out for a minute. We understand, but be sure to go back then so that we have the coverage we need. All right. Yes? Yeah. What we're finding out lately is more and more people are comfortable with phones and picture taking without flash. And the shows that are very strict about it will make an announcement. That's, I would say, a vast majority of them now. If they're really strict about it, like if it's a dance show or something where it can be dangerous to the dancers, they will make an announcement. So that should be happening more often. Yep. Steve has something to add. Always. So, and I'll just repeat this for the video. Essentially, if what they're doing is harmful to the people around them or behind them, like holding the phone over their head, we would certainly want to ask them to stop. Yep. Yeah. And I would say if you're addressing it much like you're distracting other patrons around you and they've complained, that's about as much as we can say. Well, I'm not recording. Well, it's not. It's about you're distracting the other people from enjoying the performance. If somebody had their feet up in the back of your chair, you wouldn't like it. It's kind of the same thing. Oh, I have a couple examples too from this past year where we've now had patron on patron altercations. In one case, it was over a cell phone. It was actually my boss's wife was using her phone to read her program. These are all coming from dance shows. That shouldn't surprise you. She was at a dance recital. She was using her phone to read her program, and the people around her were getting very irritated. And somebody made a rude comment, I would say. And then my wife's boss responded in kind, and it was interesting. He came to tell me the whole story after it was over. And I'm like, all right, sounds to me like neither one of you were doing what you should have been doing, but hey. So I would guess we'll see more of that too. The other example, Monday night also, is we had an incident I hadn't run into before, and this was also at a dance recital. We actually had patrons kind of bullying other patrons and making them feel uncomfortable. And it was very unfortunate, and the first time I think we've really dealt with anything that specific. And so ultimately we moved the person that was being bullied. And but when we went to do that, the other families were even rude to our staff, and again continued to make comments. And so yeah, that we discussed a lot as a staff. Just if we have to deal with that again in the future, what are some strategies we could use? And as I said, I don't think it would have been out of the question if they had kept doing it to ask them to leave, because that's just not an appropriate way to treat other people. But that definitely would have been the call made by the staff person. None of you would have to do that. But yeah, I bring that up to say, we've been doing this for a number of years. The building's been open 19. I've been here 12, and that's the first time I've ever heard of an instance quite like that. So there's always going to be things that we can't specifically cover in training. So use your best judgment and don't be afraid to ask for more help in that situation. That's exactly what the usher did in the case I just talked about. The usher went and got other folks because they said, hey, this isn't right. These people are upset, and we need to try to remedy it. So, okay. Do arrive early enough to hang up your coat, get signed in, and be in the meeting location at the call time. So when we put 5:45 p.m. on your usher schedule, that's the time we want to start the usher meeting. So please take into account parking, hanging up your coat, getting signed in, so that you can be there on that time. And I think a lot of you do this. Most of the time we're waiting just for the line because there's one sign-in sheet. And 100 or 70 of you in some cases. Just make sure you're doing your best, and I think a vast majority of you do. So just a reminder there. Yep. Sure. That's great feedback. We can make the sign-up sheet larger. Michaela. Michaela, make the sign-up sheet larger. Thank you. That's very good feedback. I have tried to make some of the other things we do larger. The Usher schedule came out kind of small. I tried to improve it a little bit, but it wasn't great. Okay, do park in the appropriate parking lots across University Avenue. I did have somebody ask, is there anywhere closer? Unfortunately, no. Anything closer to the building, you're equally as likely to get a ticket as anything else. Which brings me to today. I did not remember to tell public safety until 1:30 this afternoon. When you were walking in, I was like, oh, crud. So I did talk to them, and you definitely should be fine across University today. But if you parked out here in the meter lot, it's kind of a crapshoot. So if you do end up with a ticket, bring that back in to me. We'll take care of it. And if not, fantastic. Yeah, you can park in any of the lots across University. You should be fine. And on Kaleidoscope days, they don't ticket those lots while we have Kaleidoscope shows going on. And then they almost never ticket them in the evening. But we do give them a list of all of our shows. And so then they definitely. Now, about once or twice a year, someone on the police side will not read the calendar and will walk through and give, they'll give out 25 tickets and not even realize that perhaps something is fishy. But this does happen, as I said, about once or twice a year. And so if that ever does happen, just bring those back to us. We turn them over to the parking department and they will cancel them. Kind of. It's a more complicated process, but we will take care of them. So if that does happen, Jared's laughing. Jared was on the committee that's in charge of that. There's a whole parking appeals committee, and they meet, is it weekly, Jared? They meet every week, and so we have to fill out a form and put in all the information and ask it to be canceled, and then that committee, of which Jared was a member, gets to decide whether or not they're going to approve the appeal. So, but we'll take care of all that for you. You don't have to do that yourself. Aren't universities lovely? They are. All right. Do wear correct attire according to our dress code. That's black bottoms, either full-length slacks or skirts, black-white tops, or plain white tops, dress shirt, blouse, polo, etc., black shoes with closed toes, name tag, and appropriate embellishments. Well, the reason why we say appropriate is because like a full face mask probably would be too much. But a scarf or a tie or, just kind of a little festive something or other is probably going to be fine. If you're in doubt, feel free to ask one of us and we can give you an honest opinion. I've been saying that for a couple of years. I don't think anybody's ever asked, so I think everybody has some idea. But we do stick with the white shirts. Even for holidays and whatnot. When ushering, greet guests at the door and offer to show them to their seats. Walk them down the aisle to their row and then directing them on how far over their seats are. So, as an example, if I were ushering here at door number 1, first of all, I'd be standing as close to the door as I could. I would greet them, welcome to the Gallagher Blue Door. May I show you to your seats? They hand me their tickets. Yes, you're right over here. Follow me. You guys are right here in row B, and you're going to be in the middle there, about 7, 8 seats over. Enjoy the show. I would walk them up the aisle if they were up the aisle. But we take them to their seats. Don't just stand and point. So, hey, you're back there in that last row, 3 or 4 seats in, just tell those people to move. That's not how we do it. Walk them down the row. Obviously, in that few minutes before the show, there could be a lot of people coming at you. Do the best you can. You might turn around and meet them halfway. But again, we're still showing them to their seats. Okay? For a busy show, you hopefully have help. Yes. So the question is related to when somebody gets up to use the restroom as an example, and we do want to wait for them to come back. And also a side note on using the flashlight, make sure that's always pointed at the ground. And the flashlight is for exactly this purpose, assisting guests, not reading the program. Because reading the program with a flashlight is extraordinarily distracting. Just ask anyone who's seen the usher up at door 6 do it, or door 1, because the 3/4 of the house can see you do it. I would definitely assist them down the stairs, and take them as best you can, because the flashlight and the glow tape on the stairs is all designed to assist with them not tripping or falling. So down here at the front, it might, again, weighing that distraction piece. If they're at all uneasy on their feet or are disoriented because of the darkness and brightness, then of course walk them. But yeah, kind of play that case by case. Definitely help them on the stairs. Definitely help them as much as you think they need. Some of them will, there's this social pressure to feeling like you're distracting just doing that. And that's why some of them will even say that they're not going to go back, and that does happen from time to time. Somebody asked me that on Monday, and I said, it's okay to ask them if they're coming back. If they're stepping out, say, hey, are you going to be back in a couple of minutes? And they might say, oh yeah, I'm just running to the restroom. Or they might say, oh no, I got to go take a phone call or something. And then you don't have to wait for them. But yeah, if they're going to be back within a couple of minutes, please just wait for them outside that door and escort them back in. If you're the only usher at the door, then you should wait on the inside. Yeah, that I would rather have. If you're the only one there, I'd rather have you on the inside versus the outside. But I would stand right by the door so you can kind of hear them coming. You can hear that other set of doors, and then you could kind of step back out there with the flashlight for between the doors. So that's a good question. Yep. Yes. Right. Yeah, definitely help them out. So again, in the example of you're the only person here, I would help them out through there, and then I'd come back and stand on the inside of this door, but I'd be listening for that other door so that you could step back out there with the flashlight. Yes. Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, if there are multiple people at the door, remember, our expectation is turn taking, not one person, not. I love your examples, by the way. It tended to be the new person that got stuck with doing all of that. And it is a great, I can use your point to throw in a great reminder, and that is, of course, our greatest perk is that we get to see the show, but that's not our primary purpose for being here. Our primary purpose for being here is to serve our guests. And so that does sometimes mean that we need to assist and let them out and take them out. And we're going to miss a couple minutes while they come back from the bathroom. And it is important to take turns doing that. So it's not always the same person. Those are very good points. And as to throw in, the other thing I like to say, if you really, 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 really want to see the show, buy a ticket. Because when we have our job to do, we sometimes are interrupted to do that job. Okay. Please do expect to work all levels, work up and down the stairs and the entire performance. So we do rotate people around to all 3 levels. Even if you're terrified of the heights at door 3, we can have you hand out programs or something, discuss that with the floor captain. but we do move people through all 3 rows. And also, on the mezzanine and gallery, even with the stairs up and down, we are still walking folks down to their row. If you have some sort of thing going on, your hip is going out on you or something. Sorry, I use that example because I hear it more and more. That's fine. Talk with your floor captain about ways that we can modify what you're doing, or talk to the other people. I'm sure there are ways we can accommodate you without skipping the entire assignment or not doing it well, okay? So I know that that's a sensitive topic, but please know that we understand, and we don't want you to be in pain either, but we still have to make sure that we get our folks taken care of, okay? Also, the entire performance. So we have our jobs to cover at intermission and also after the show. So if you're assigned the lobby, there has been more and more feeling that once the show starts, you're done. That's not true. You need to return the lobby at intermission. You need to return to the lobby after the show. During intermission, it's being a resource for folks that might have questions. For example, they may come up to you and say, "Where can I have a cigarette?" And the answer is, well, you can't really, but if you walk out to the traffic light, you'll probably be okay. Or after the show, it's just thanking folks for coming. And again, also, we have folks, every time we have folks that have never been here before. And so they're going to walk back out to that front door and they're going to say, "Where's my car? I put it with the valet." "Oh, well, the valet is actually, the pickup is down at the west door." So again, that's why we always need to be in those locations to address things like that. Now, you may go 3 or 4 shows with not being asked a single question, but that doesn't mean on the 5th show that you won't have a serious thing to take care of. All right. I've lost my place. Yes, do stay after the performance to help pick up your assigned area. This just takes a couple of minutes. As I say, many hands. If everybody stays and walks a couple rows, it's all done very quickly. I don't think I've heard of too many instances where the ushers didn't get out of here within, 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the show. And this is not a lot of time we're asking there. So if everybody helps, it will go quickly. Do enjoy the performance, but remember, serving our patrons is our main purpose. I got ahead of myself. So please make sure to assist anyone who needs in or out during the show. And I will now add, rotate that job. Yes? Food, yeah. Anything that they have purchased here, they're allowed to bring in, and we'll continue to honor it that way. Yep. Please wait for guests to return from the restroom. It's okay to ask if they will be returning. And do appropriately address any disruptions that may come about during the show. Actually, Steve had some great examples on that, so we will press on. Do review the seating layout, rows, numbers of your assigned area every time you work. Seating guests in the correct place the first time saves us all. Remember, the particularly tricky spots are on the mezzanine, where we have a row A seat 2 and 4 and 10, and all of that in both the front and also the boxes. So there's 3 different places where you can be in A2, and so you need to carefully check that ticket and make sure they're in the right place. I'll also throw in here notes about that cell phone ticket that we've been talking a lot about. Unfortunately, the way the system is currently programmed, we cannot get even the level number on that e-ticket. That's an issue I have identified with the provider. It's just a limitation of their system right now. So the door number has not been appearing on either the print-at-home ticket or the e-ticket, and now we've lost the level number as well. So it's becoming more and more important to remember your section codes, and the section codes, if you don't recall, are like the CORC, LORC, RORC, all of that sort of thing. We do have little cheater cards that you can always take a look at. Floor captains got them in their bins. But again, if you're assigned to door number 1 here on the orchestra, you can come in here and say, oh, A, B, C, oh yeah, and 114 on this end. Take just a minute or 2 to kind of reacquaint yourself, and then at least you know what you have in that area. Now, those of you assigned to the lobby, you have to know it all. So again, if it's been a while since you worked, or if it's your first time this semester, don't be afraid to take a minute, and please do, to familiarize yourself with that. Same thing, and that's the next one. Take a moment to review the safety plans. Notice the nearest ways out of the building in an emergency every time. Always be prepared to take action in an emergency. Our next chunk is all about the safety stuff, so we'll get into those particulars. But we even have an announcement that plays of Steve's voice that advises the patron to take a minute to find the nearest exit. And so that in an emergency, they'll be asked to use that exit to get out of the building. Okay, do inform event staff of any safety concerns as soon as you can. If you see something, say something. The best example of this year, backpacks. There was a gentleman carrying a backpack. We're a college campus, so people carrying backpacks can have a very benign purpose, as in going to class. But for whatever reason, this usher thought, I'm just not comfortable with that, and so they just brought it to the attention of our staff, and it was actually Steve who went to check it out, and he chatted him up and found out, yep, it's just a student with a backpack. So we have no problem with that, taking care of those situations and checking them out case by case. We would much rather that than have somebody just, oh, I'm sure it's fine. Anytime I've watched several training videos of late to pick one we're going to watch in a little bit, and in several of the strategies it says, go with that gut feeling. If that gut feeling says something is not right about this, then mention it up the chain so that we can check it out. Do email or call us when you cannot make it to an usher assignment. Repeated the emails and the phone numbers there just for your reference. None of those have changed over previous years. They're all the same. Do please sign up on the sign-up sheet when you get here. We've noticed some folks will wait till the end, probably because there's a line or something like that. But the floor captains do use that to make sure that they've got coverage. So they might feel like they're short 3 or 4 people, and they'll double-check the sign-in sheet just to see. And anyway, it works out better if everybody can sign at the beginning, so that if the floor captain needs to move some people around to get it covered, they can do that. And do enjoy volunteering. I hope you enjoy this. If not, I'm not sure what you're doing here. Yes? Yes. So, here at door 1 and 6, especially where we have folks, we end up with a lot of walkers and wheelchairs and devices and stuff like that. And we have tags where we tag that with their name and seat location for 2 reasons. Number 1, because one time Walker went home with the wrong person and we never got it back. And so we're trying to get the devices back to the people that they belong to, number 1. Number 2, in an emergency, if we're trying to help get these devices to the people, it's helpful to know their seat location. So they don't have to come in and be like, hey, whose walker is this? In an emergency, seconds count, and so having the seat location on there gives us that second purpose. Now, I'm thinking back to Tony Bennett. We had a large amount of walkers, wheelchairs, and devices at both door 1 and 6. And we even there's a little storage closet in there. We even opened that up that night to try to stick some in there. So we have to do our best because obviously storing those things there does create an obstruction, but we need those devices close by because the people sitting in here that use them also need to get out quickly in an emergency. So we just have to weigh it as best we can. We always want there to still be an aisle through there. I think the biggest issue I know I dealt with at Tony Bennett, other than the lady who fell and hit her head, was over here at door 6, I think it was, we had 2 people with those drivable scooters. Those are probably the worst thing because they're enormous. And so we were able to kind of figure it out. But again, you just have to get creative because that's the device that they will use in an emergency to get out of here quickly. So we don't want to inhibit their evacuation either. So yeah, that's the fine line we have to walk. Yep. Yeah. We saw a lot of that at Tony Bennett, and we've had feedback on that from some of those shows in the past. Unfortunately, with Tony Bennett, and I can think of like Daniel O'Donnell and some other shows that attract more aged crowd. We do run into those, and our box office staff, our students are trained very well on the accessible locations of our hall. They're brought in and toured around, and so we really do try to get them the information to help those folks get in a seat that is accessible. Now, the people using the tickets aren't always the ones that bought the tickets. There's just a wide variety of reasons. Also, if the accessible seating has sold out and it becomes you want to see the show or not, I can pretty much guarantee you the student advises them that it's not an accessible location, or you'll have to climb up some stairs to get there. And that was something that they agreed to on the phone that day. But when they come to the show, they may have forgotten that. Or as I said, someone else may. So there's just a wide variety of circumstances, but we do give our students a lot of training in that to make sure they try to get them an accessible location. But we are limited. Our only areas without stairs are right here and right here. Everywhere else in the building has stairs. Well, I guess it's like row C or something. There's like one row on these upper levels that you can get to without stairs, and that's the row where we have a few accessible seats. The other thing, ADA is very specific about providing accessible locations in all price zones and in all areas, but we can't challenge the person. If they were to tell us that they need accessible seating, we can't ask them to prove it or why. So we could also have folks who are saying they need accessible seating because they know that they're in the third row. We can't stop them from doing that because the law prohibits us from asking them those questions. If they identify as needing an accessible seat and it's available, we have to sell it to them. So we've got some of that as well. Yep. Absolutely, and that's excellent feedback. So if you know they came in back here with their walker and came down every step, absolutely encourage them to come back around this way to avoid the stairs. Absolutely. Yep. Good. Yep. As far as, go ahead, Steve. Yeah. So I would say the liability is really on service of additional alcohol, which is covered by the training and catering and stuff like that. If we're concerned about their behavior or anything, that again, just bring that to our attention. And if we think that an officer needs to get involved, we have, that's actually a good segue into, we have started to bring on UNI police officers, as you've seen, for some of our events where we think it's warranted. Unfortunately, there is a cost to doing that, so doing it for every show is just not something that we've decided to do at this point. But we do kind of make an assessment of where we think they would be more useful, helpful, and we are bringing them on to more and more of those shows. We've started to employ some security staff in the back of the house. That is mostly because we've started to book shows that require it. It used to be the shows we were bringing did not have those requirements. Now they do, and so we do have, but those staff are really designed to be back there. If there are a couple of them in here at the front of the stage, really their role is to keep people from getting on the stage. And now, they're good folks and they're gonna help out with other things too, but their primary focus is protecting the talent on stage. So it's really those roaming UNI police officers are the ones that we would use for any sort of drunk or anything like that. And again, as campus officers, they're very well trained. It is not their goal to arrest anybody and take them away. As many an officer has told me, if you get arrested, you've earned it. their first and foremost thing is to get you safely to where you need to be. So that's making sure that you're not driving, someone is driving you, or something like that. I believe in my tenure here, we've had exactly one arrest, and I'm pretty sure it was at that rap show we did a few years ago. So, as I say, you have to earn it. So don't be afraid that getting the police involved is going to get them in trouble or something. Really, first and foremost, they're going to concentrate on their safety. Oh, did I skip that one? Thank you. Okay, I don't remember what oh yeah. Please don't buy concessions, partake in any leftover food, etc., while you're supposed to be preparing, taking care of guests. So the question was, way back in the history of the Gallagher Blue Dome, we were once told that we can never buy concessions. And I understand that from the standpoint of we have a job to do, we need to take care of folks. The only reason I'm softening that a little bit is because I understand there's not a vast majority, but there's a number of you that might be coming straight from work, from other obligations, from other things. Like, we understand there are circumstances in life you haven't gotten to eat anything. Well, I don't want you fainting on me because you haven't eaten anything. So if you need, I'm just saying, do your usher responsibilities first. So the appropriate times are before call time, during the show, and or maybe afterwards, but concessions are closed afterwards. And again, chat with that floor captain so that they know what's going on. Hey, when the show gets started, I just need a few minutes to grab a little something to eat. I didn't get a chance to eat. They're all reasonable people. They're not going to tell you no. They're going to find a way to help you out. Okay? And the reason why I throw it in, and sometimes we have extra food and we'll share that with you and stuff like that. It's all great, but again, our primary focus is taking care of the patrons. Okay? So that's why, that was one that was mentioned from the responses that were sent to me. So I wanted to incorporate that in to clarify that. I honestly didn't know about the very specific language from previous. So I was glad that somebody explained it to me. Okay, I love your questions. I just want to be conscious of time. We have a lot more things to comment or to cover, and I don't want to run over or not over by much. So the next thing we need to move into is our refresher on crowd management. Remember, crowd management just means taking care of our patrons, as we always do. Crowd management is sort of a general way of describing it so that they could write it into fire codes and building codes. So what is your goal and objective as a crowd manager? I'm going to sum up this whole slide in a few words: to keep our patrons safe. There are a couple main ways of doing that. Number one is pointing out to us, identifying any safety concerns that might be present. Cables over here by the door that didn't get taped down. A handrail that they forgot to put in back there. Any sort of things that you notice like that, let us know. Exit lights are not working. Doors are stuck, not opening. Anything that's going to inhibit somebody from leaving the building in an emergency, or might cause a trip or something like that, let us know so that we can address it. You are our best safety device, an alert, well-trained, and equipped staff. Oh gosh. So, why is it important? Well, number one, it's a good idea, but number two, it's required by fire code. For places of assembly, of which we are, we have to have a trained crowd manager in a ratio of 1 to 250 guests. At UNI, those places are Dome, McLeod, Gallagher Blue Dome, West Gym, and other fun places like that. A lot of this has come about. Yeah, I took some slides out. That one's still in there. So in other words, the long and short of it is, why is it important? Basically, all of the fire codes and updates come out of tragic events. The tragic event back in 2003 that born a lot of this life safety code stuff was a fire at a nightclub, and they wouldn't let people leave backstage because nobody goes backstage even though the building's on fire. And there was only one exit out of the building, and it was kind of blocked, and so there was this big pile of people, and there was just a massive tragedy. And so there were many, many, many more violations in that scenario, but it did create some of these standards for 1 to 250 and giving them training and make sure they know. That's also the standard, the announcement we make that we've had Steve record is also a requirement by the fire code. We have to make an announcement that makes every patron be aware of how they would get out in an emergency. And statistics show just by giving them that, it's like having sprinklers. It greatly reduces the chance of a problem if there is an emergency, just by making them more aware. Just by talking about it here for 15 or 20 minutes, you're all more aware of what we do and we can respond quickly. All of that saves time in an emergency, and all of that stacks up to make it much more successful. So, as I said, before the event, look for any safety problems. This begins from your walk for the parking lot. If you notice that the sidewalk is icy, let us know. I'd rather 10 people tell me that the sidewalk is icy than everybody to assume that somebody else told me. And we'll get somebody out there to address it. Exit doors open, storage, gathering in the exit passageway. This is a challenging one for us because obviously when we're doing a Broadway show, we're loading in several semis worth of equipment that we're going to turn around and load out in 10 hours after 2 shows. And so sometimes in some of our hallways and things, there's going to be extra stuff. That's kind of the nature of our business. What we work to try to minimize the safety risk is keep it all to one side so that there's still a pathway. Same thing down here as we talked about with walkers and wheelchairs. As long as we're still keeping a pathway, then that will be better. Some of you might not realize either. The reason why that backstage thing is relevant to all of you is if you're going out this door right here, you might have to do that hard left and go all the way out the exit on that side of the building. That's going to take you through the backstage area, and you have to kind of navigate around this equipment that could be there. But again, they're always supposed to be leaving a clear access to that getting out of there. No exits are off limits. No exits are closed. If, you know, the idea behind having a fire drill every year is hopefully you're trying other ways, trying other hallways, going out other doors, and you get to more familiar with all of the different ways out of this building. We don't all have to go out through the lobby. Once you get to this hallway, you can go out the north end, or the 2 ends of the building. Some people the other night went out the door straight out that way. That goes to the parking lot. Any way out is a way out. If there's a bunch of people in this stairwell over here, go to the next one. The quicker we can get people out, the better. Familiarize yourself with locations of fire extinguishers and fire alarm pull stations in the building. If you observe a fire, you should pull the alarm. If you aren't near where you can pull an alarm, you should notify us as fast as you can, radio, whatever. If somebody hears that, they will pull the alarm. The alarm is the fastest way to notify everybody in the building that there's an emergency. Fire extinguishers. If you don't know how to use a fire extinguisher or haven't, don't waste your time unless you're certain you can put it out. The priority would be alerting everybody else and getting people out. Now, if it's a small fire and you're certain you can put it out, then use the time to get the fire extinguisher and try. This just talks about how hard it is to communicate when the event is ongoing. You get any sort of amplified sound in here, and our sound system, it being very newish and powerful, very easily overpowers the fire alarm system. So if the fire alarm sounds during a show, you will not hear the alarm. You will just see the strobe lights. You might kind of hear it, but you won't understand it. You'll just see the strobe lights. So you guys have to know that that strobe means the fire alarm's going off and we need to begin evacuating. Now, on the technical side, we will respond to that by bringing the level down and playing our fire announcement, but that is going to take a little bit. You guys know right away that we're going to start moving folks. There's those few seconds of confusion, what the heck's going on, but you guys just need to work with them on saying, that's our fire alarm, an emergency, and we're going to begin evacuating. So just be direct. They might ask you questions. Why? What's going on? I'm not sure what's going on, but I do know that that means we need to evacuate. So please follow, and we're going to make our way out of the building. Also, the area you're assigned to, we can't exceed our occupant load. This is very easy for us because we have seats. So our occupant load is the number of seats that we have. We cannot let people stand in the aisles. We can't stack up a bunch of people at the doors or anything like that. We can only have the number of people in here that we have seats for. The only exception being trained crowd managers, like all of you, sitting in folding chairs in the back. There's the, if you see something, say something again. Oh, and communication. If you are a volunteer floor captain or someone that has a radio, just make sure that you're being clear and as clear as you can be on there. Don't just say, I need help over here. I don't know who you are, and I don't know where you are. So this is Chris. I'm on the mezzanine, and somebody fell. I need, we need some help. So just as much specific information as you can give us so we know how to respond. Open flames are prohibited on campus. This also includes no cigarettes, no e-cigarettes, nothing like that is allowed. No open flames at all. They'll have to use their phone. There's actually an app you can get with a picture of a candle. Just start waving that back and forth. If the fire alarm goes off, we will evacuate, and we will evacuate before we do anything else. A couple years ago, the alarm went off during an event. It was a church service thing, and the pastor up on stage is like, "Oh no, it's fine, just stay here." Well, he's not in charge, so ignore him. Continue evacuating people. And we battled that for several minutes because he was telling people not to leave and our staff was telling people to leave. So your guys' job is to listen to what we say and our training and not whoever's standing on the stage, because giving them a microphone does not put them in charge. We will always evacuate. We will likely have the building nearly 100% evacuated before we could even figure out if it's a false alarm or not. It takes time to source the alarm. We don't do that. We concentrate on the evacuation as building staff. Public safety will come and source the alarm. So it's going to take them 2 to 5 minutes just to get here. It's going to take them another 5 to 10 minutes to source the alarm, depending on where it is. So we very likely will have the building entirely evacuated before we reset the alarm and figure out what's going on. Your primary job is to direct people to a safe location and also get yourselves to a safe location. Our safe location, once we get out of the building, is we gather across the street in front of Gilchrist Hall. So that is straight out our front doors, across the little driveway, across the next road, and there's a hedge and greenery over there in front of Gilchrist. That's the first place we go. If it's frigid cold and we need to get to a shelter place because we're going to be there for a while, we'll give more instructions from there. But first and foremost, head there. There was last November during Thespian Festival, we had a fire alarm go off in the middle of a play about a fire. Imagine the confusion. So it was cold out there, but after a few minutes, public safety did open Gilchrist, and so there was a place to take people into. But again, that took several minutes to figure out what was going on before we could get people back in. Yeah, well, yeah, and a lot of times, that's another good point. They'll walk out that front door and they'll want to stop. You want to, at the very least, get them across that driveway. And now keep encouraging them to go further away, because if there really is some sort of fire situation, we need that space for vehicles, for fire trucks, ambulance, any sort of emergency vehicles that need to come over here. We need to be clear of that. And so yes, at the very least, we want them across that driveway, but keep encouraging them to go over to that place even further. Somebody else mentioned a couple of the ushers even started kind of directing the traffic to get them across the street there so we didn't have vehicles and stuff. All good things, whatever you need to do to. If you go out this door, then you probably just have to follow like Ohio Street around or something and just work your way around the exterior of the building till you get there. It will take a few extra minutes, but. The reason why we want to try to get everybody in one location is so that we can try and account for everybody. And I mean, obviously, we don't have a list or anything that we can check off, but anything we could do to try to account for them. If we get everybody in one location, we're more likely to hear some of that information. And no, you can't stop them from leaving if they really wanted to go sit in their cars. Now, I wouldn't want them sitting here in this lot if there was some sort of situation going on, but I would encourage them to stay, but I'm not going to hold them down. Okay? Short, sweet. You're hereby crowd managers again. Okay. Right on time. All right. So for a number of years now, I have been asked by several people, is there any sort of training we can do on like an active shooter scenario? And we've all been through some training that the campus police have done here and found it very useful. The tricky thing about that scenario is I can't really train you for it because in an evacuation, we know what we're going to do. We're going to leave. In a tornado, we know what we're going to do. We're going to go to the basement. In an active shooter scenario, there's too many possibilities. I can't stand here and tell you what exactly we're going to do because it depends. So I reached out to the Department of Public Safety, the assistant chief here at UNI, and I asked him if there was any sort of training materials available, and he suggested there's a bunch of videos online based on this run, hide, fight concept that was developed as a way to train this. So I looked at several different videos, and I picked one that I thought gives a good set of tools for considering what to do in that kind of situation, and I'd like to share it with you. Now, it is a sensitive topic. I understand if you've got any sort of history, it might be uncomfortable. You don't have to stay and watch this video. It's about 6 minutes. You're certainly welcome to step outside. Don't leave, though, because we're going to do our fire drill at the very end again. But you're certainly welcome to step outside for that video, or if you find during the video you need to step outside, that's fine, too. And once we get done with that, then we're going to split off and do our fire drill, okay? I chose this one because it was made by the Ohio State University Department of Public Safety, and since they're also a university, they address a couple of things specific to us being a university, and that is we have our own police force, and so they're going to be the first ones to respond to such a situation. And also, if you call 911 to report anything, make sure you tell them you're at the UNI campus. Because when you call 911, you're routed to the Blackhawk County Dispatch Center instead of the UNI Dispatch Center. So that's one of the first things you can tell them to make sure that information gets communicated quickly. Okay, before we start the video, though, I want to hand out, can I get my handout helpers? Again, for the fire drill, we're going to have you go, we're going to practice our section locations. So on this card is one of those 4-digit abbreviations for a section of the hall. At the conclusion of the run, hide, fight video, we'll talk for just a couple quick minutes and then we'll dismiss you off to find this location. On the upper levels, did we get doors open yet, Molly? On the upper levels, doors 2 and 5 are open. So go through 2 or 5 first to get to your location. Once everybody's in position, we'll set off the alarm, evacuate, use a new stairwell, use a new hallway that you haven't used before, use a new exit out of the building, and then meet us all over in front of Gilchrist. And we will not come back in here to the hall at that point. So take your stuff with you. I think that's everything I got to cover. Yep. Yeah, there's a wide variety of the size and type of cables that get put under there. And as they're pointing out, every once in a while, they're really thick. And we've even had to just station somebody to stay there and point it out to them every time. So yeah, if that's what's required given this scenario. We've actually researched quite a bit. Sandy wanted to get them to cut a hole in the concrete and make like a smooth tray, and they won't do it. They have various reasons why, and I'm sure they're good ones. I mean, those are the experts. But unfortunately, that tends to be kind of the best we can do right now. Any sort of cable track we put over it, the space limitations mean we can't go up or down the other, like the rise and stuff, it just doesn't fit. Yeah, so it's a good point. If it is really, really tall, you might just have to have somebody stand there and point it out every time. Yep. I simplified that a little bit to say we'll always go there first. And then from there, we'll determine if it's winter and we need to go somewhere warmer. We'll figure that out. Because the other reason behind that is those buildings are often locked. And so you're going to end up standing outside of that building anyway. It'd be better if we simplify it and say we're always going to go over there. And then if it's winter, we'll give directions over there as to where we'd go for warmth. So yeah, just trying to simplify that one less detail. Okay. Go, Jared. Play the video.
The Ohio State University is home to historic landmarks and lifelong traditions. But in an instant, this scenic campus could become the backdrop to a scene that happens all too often across the country. Chances are you'll never face a situation like this one. But if you do, you need to be prepared. I'm Officer Adam Tabor with the OSU Police Division. I'm here to help you improve your chances of surviving an active shooter incident. The Ohio State University Police train countless hours to be prepared for emergency situations such as this. Our #1 priority is to keep you safe. Make no mistake, you can survive an active shooter incident by remembering and planning ahead to take 3 important steps. Run, hide, fight. If an active shooter or similar incident requires the campus community to stay safe, our Emergency Management Division will send what's called a Buckeye Alert. These are often sent via text message as soon as possible after determining that a threat exists. A Buckeye Alert will contain the most accurate information available at the time, but an active shooter situation evolves rapidly and known details may be limited. That is why it's important for you to remain observant and use your senses to be attentive to your surroundings at all times. If you encounter an active shooter or receive a Buckeye Alert affecting your area, the first and best option to survive is run. Get out. Quickly and safely evacuate the area. If you can get out, do it. Scatter and run. Get as far away as you can. Once you're safe, call 911.
911, where is your emergency?
Make sure you tell the 911 operator, who may be located within the city's dispatch center, that you are on Ohio State's campus. Running away should always be your first priority. But what happens if you hear gunshots and you are unable to get out? Your second reaction should be to hide.
Come up here, take the table.
If you're in a room, lock the door. Look for something to barricade entry points. Turn off lights. Silence your cell phone. The idea is to make it as hard as possible for the shooter to see you, find you, or get to you. And always spread out. Don't huddle together. That creates one easy target.
We're sending the alert now.
The alert says the shooter is in the building.
If running isn't an option and hiding isn't an option, there's one final reaction that you should only use as a last resort if confronted by the shooter. Fight. Find anything to use as a weapon. A fire extinguisher, a chair. Fighting back is a last resort, but if it's between you and the shooter, we want you to survive. When preparing yourself mentally for this fight, remember something. Statistically, active shooters are apprehended or eliminated within the first 5 minutes of the incident. Once notified, our officers will respond to stop the shooter. You only need to fight until they do, and that could be 10 seconds away, the most important 10 seconds of your life. It's scary to think about, but an active shooter is something that we all need to be prepared for. Whether you're a student or a member of our faculty or staff, take time to know your surroundings. Know at least 2 exits out of your room and building. Take different routes into and out of your building to become familiar with every possible escape route. Look around in the room you're in right now. Find areas where you could hide or items you could use as weapons. 3 simple words could save lives. So remember, run, hide, fight.
Okay. A couple things I want to add, and also based on some of the feedback we got on Monday night. One of the questions was, if it happened somewhere else on campus, what would we do? And I said, if it were somewhere else on campus, we would likely be directed to shelter here, because sending 1,000+ people into the Wander, I don't think would be the most safe. The university here, and our response plan would be to activate an emergency operations center that we would be able to get in contact with and say, we have 1,000 people in the Great Hall. We're going to hold here, or give us instructions, and then they're going to be the ones with the best information, and we're going to follow their lead on whether we should stay or go or whatever, as far as like the vast majority. This training more talks about what if they walked into this room. And that would obviously be a whole different scenario. So I think there's, as I said, there's a multitude of possibilities, but those are the 2 kind of, whether or not we'd stay or go sort of thing. Then the last one is that this was in another video that I watched with the similar, as I said, a lot of universities have put these together. The city of Houston did the first one for Run, Hide, Fight. And one of the things that was in their video that this one did not really cover is the first responding officers, their #1 goal is to neutralize the shooter. And so they are not going to attend to injured people. They are not going to be helping you guys get out. Their first and foremost goal is neutralizing the shooter. So they will walk past people that are on the ground because they have to go do that first. And then obviously more help is on the way, but the first ones to arrive, their first goal is to stop it. So bear that in mind. You wouldn't go running up to them to try to help you at that point. You just keep running. And someone else mentioned the county, Blackhawk County, did a whole like 4-hour half-day shut down the courthouse. And somebody Monday night attended that, or Tuesday night attended that, and they said the other thing is they said if you're running to zigzag, or don't run in a straight line, because that makes you a harder target. And that's from the university's training as well. They said the same thing, because they said statistically active shooters are not marksmen or women, and so an amateur shooter is even less likely to hit a moving target. Even the most trained have a hard time hitting a moving target. So, all right. Now, for our fire drill. We'll dismiss you to these locations. We'll go have you get in place. I have to go make a phone call to public safety and do a few things before I can set off the alarm. So you've got a couple minutes to get in your spots, and then we'll go for it. We will gather out front in that lawn by Gilchrist, and then once everybody's out there, we'll be done.